Hey everybody, welcome to the Austin Guy Podcast. I'm Austin, had Crohn since I was 10, colostomy since 2006, and have been doing advocacy, awareness type work for a number of years now, and started this podcast for one specific reason: to get more people with ostomies and major personal illnesses to feel comfortable sharing their stories or listening to someone's story and learning that someone else is out there battling what you're battling, that I am not alone in my suffering. And today we have the pleasure of getting to speak with Stephanie Bension, who's a speaker and a writer. She's an advocate. She's had Crohn's disease for a number of years. She was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2004 in her teens and has had an ileostomy from a complete colectomy back in 2013. So she's had her ostomy for a number of years now and does all kinds of work in regards to speaking engagements, has been on TED Talks a number of times and a number of other really big platforms. And so we have the honor of getting to hear her story and just kind of visiting with her a little bit about some of her struggles, what she kind of deals with, and how she kind of manages her day. So without further ado, here is Miss Bension.
How's your day going?
It's going pretty good. How's yours?
It's going good. I took most of the day off. I went into the office for a little bit, but I had a podcast earlier today and then our podcast this evening, and did a little bit of work this morning. So I've been home and just kind of taking it easy.
Good.
But it's been a good day. Yeah.
Good. I actually did something similar. I didn't work full day today. Just needed a little bit of rest.
Yeah. Well, are you able to take naps? I can't take naps. No way.
Normally no, but if I'm tired enough, yes.
Yeah. Well, were you tired enough today, or did you just take it easy?
I was tired enough today.
And you got rid of your purple. How long ago did you get rid of the purple?
So I've actually been working with a girl who's been doing all different styles on me. And so I think I had the purple for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah. We've done blonde and blue and all kinds of different colors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I would say, so like right now, just before we got on with each other, I'm sitting here thinking maybe an hour ago how tired I am, and I took it easy most of the day, right? And so that's what happens so often, is even on those days where I want to take a break and chill out, and I'm like, man, I'm going to sleep in today. It never seems like we can catch up on it, though it's good for us, and we need it. Even having a pretty relaxing day, even recreational day, if you will, can be exhausting. Like just I was hanging out outside with my kids at the pool today, and the sun just beat me up, and I was just tired, and I was like, golly, but it's just something everybody deals with something like that. But getting into it, man, I was just like, this is pathetic. I got to rest all day. You'd think I'd be chill and ready to go, and I'm still tired.
Yeah. For people with chronic illnesses, we just experience fatigue differently.
Yeah.
It just comes in these huge waves, and it just kind of takes you down.
Yeah. And it's that way, and it works differently for everybody. That's another thing too, right? You notice, like, as we all talk with each other, we learn fatigue might work with me totally different than you, and it might come on at totally different times, and it might be caused by totally different things. And each person is so individual in regards to like their immune system and how all this stuff works. It's pretty amazing how different we all are, but how similar we are in our suffering,
Yeah, and having an illness, I had to relearn my body in a brand new way.
Yeah.
So what I thought I knew about myself and my temple just completely changed. I was like, okay,
right.
let's crash course. How do we do this now?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about when you were younger, when you were diagnosed. You were diagnosed with Crohn's in your teens. That had to have been so annoying with everything else going. I mean, a healthy teenager,
Yep.
that's a terrible time. I mean, we have so many changes going on in our lives, and we're so trying to figure out our place amongst our peers and in our families at that age. For that to come and be onset is what a weight.
Yeah, it was huge. I never was a really athletically inclined child.
Yeah,
I did academics, books, competitions, all of that. I loved it, but I just was not good at athletics. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. That just wasn't my
yeah.
ministry. And so I finally found my groove and I made the cheerleading team and I was all excited. I was just like, I'm a cheerleader now. You can't tell me nothing. I had my
Yeah.
little outfit on. I'm cheering at the games. I was one of the most spirited cheerleaders, and so they nicknamed me Spirit Stick because I was skinny and I had all the spirit. Goes with cheerleading, right?
Of course you
And
did. Yeah, right around that time.
yep, exactly. And so I just, it really came on like symptoms of fatigue, and then I started to lose weight. And I wasn't very big to begin with. So I got down to 5'4" and 61 pounds.
Ooh,
I was literally
tiny.
a bag of bones.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it took my mom going into the doctor's office and saying, I'm not leaving until you figure out what's wrong with my child.
Yeah.
And they found Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis before they really thought you could have both. So I had a bunch of doctors tell me, well, that you must be getting that wrong. You don't have both, but they occur in different areas of the
Yeah.
body. So now we have more information and we know that you can have both.
Oh yeah.
And it was just not prime time. I was my senior year of high school where you get to be the big dog. And
Yeah.
I missed maybe about 60-70% of my senior year.
Yeah. Because you
Yeah.
were just due to flare ups and having to be out of it and doing school from home and that kind of stuff.
Yep. And by the time they found it, I was in grave danger. They really didn't think I was going to make it. It took them so long to correctly diagnose what was wrong with me that by the time I got to recovery, I had to have my work sent home from school.
Yeah.
It just was really bad. And I had even become the school princess. We had like the competition for the school king and queen. And
Yeah.
so I won for princess. And I remember vividly, I got fitted for my dress, and when I went back the night before our coronation, it was a tube top dress, and I put it on, and it slipped right down. I
Oh
had lost
no.
so much weight.
Oh my gosh.
And my mother, angel that she is, took that dress up. She was always taking up my clothes. She took that dress up. And the night of our coronation, you stand outside the auditorium doors and they do this really big bio and announce you royally and roll the R's and everything. And I was standing outside with one of my teachers, Miss Shelton, and I started to have a cramp. And I thought to myself, oh God, they're going to call my name and I'm not going to be able to walk down the aisle.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's okay. And she stood there and she held my hand and she prayed over me. And right as they called my name, that cramp let up and I walked down the aisle.
Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Grace is real.
Isn't it?
That's what I'm talking. That's a cool story. I love it.
That's
So
life with this illness. You just keep going.
well, you were even before that senior year period, they must have had you off and on tons of different treatments or other. You may have been trying to poke at, nuts or this diet or this food or that drug or how was that? Were you dealing with a lot of that crap on top of just being a kid in school and stuff?
Initially, I was on 17 pills. Some you took once a day, some you took every 4 hours, every 6
Yeah.
hours. These you have to take twice a day, 17 pills.
Yeah.
And my mother would do a dance for me. It was so corny, but it was kind of cool. If
Yeah.
I could finish a bowl of oatmeal and a glass of cranberry juice, I was in a very, very bad way. And there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. At one point, because I was young and I just wanted to live life, at one point, I stopped taking all 17 of the pills altogether.
Yeah.
I didn't tell my mom, and she wasn't, trying to police me. She was trying to be like, oh, you can do it on your own. And I ended up right back in the hospital. But I was so frustrated. And I was like, this
Yeah.
should not be my life.
Right. I
I
did the
don't.
exact same thing. I I woke up one day and I was like, I'm done. They're not working. I wasn't made to wake up every day and take a bunch of pills. I felt like crap before I started taking them, and I still feel like crap while I'm taking them.
Yes.
Screw that.
Yep. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And Dr. Garland Gossett here in Houston, Texas, has been a godsend.
Shout
He
out.
diagnosed me. Yeah, definite shout out. If you need a gastroenterologist in Houston, and what I loved about him was he wasn't the most experienced with ostomies. He's a gastro man, and ostomies is really kind of a different category. They go hand in hand, but they're two different specialties.
Yeah.
And he was smart enough at some point to say, I need to call in reinforcements. And he called in another doctor to help him out. And throughout my care, he has been honest and transparent and realistic with me, because I was 15 in his office, and the first thing I thought was, how am I going to get a husband and have kids if I have something coming out of my butt all the time?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. That's all you do think about at that age. That's it.
That's it. I wanted to go to senior prom. I wanted to do all these things that felt like monuments to my life. And they got me to a point where I was healthier, and I would go through these spurts of health and then these extreme spurts of like, you're really sick now and you're down and back in the hospital.
Yeah.
And your body gets immune to all these medications.
Yeah.
You take them long enough, your body's like, okay, what's next?
That's right. We evolve, man. We grow. We learn. Our body learns. That's why you can get so addicted to pain medicine, because you just evolve with, now it's getting put into your system. So your body's like, all right, that buzz isn't enough, so I need a little bit more. It's the same way with any other drug. It just slowly stops being able to work. Our body finds, and viruses find a way of breaking through and pushing back. That's why it's a battle. And that's why we don't have a cure, right?
Exactly. And because they can't really nail down the cause. I remember going to the hospital and telling the doctors, at this point, morphine won't work. You need to go straight to Dilaudid. And they were like, well, we have to give you morphine first. And I said, well, you're going to waste 2-3 hours out of my life, or I'm going to continue to be in pain. And I understand they have procedures, but at that point, my body was like, we need something stronger. We've had enough morphine. We've had enough of this and that. And I never was a druggie. I don't like taking medication. I don't like doing extra stuff. But when your body is in that amount of pain, you want to do anything to relieve that.
That's right. That's right. I have friends that are listening to this podcast who are in that exact same situation, and they struggle getting their doctors to give them the right strength or adjust it. With all the narcotic stuff going on, they're afraid of making addicts, but it's also made them hesitant about making a change for people that need a change. And there's a way of doing both, and we don't have to go to one total extreme. And like, I know people who their suffering is so bad. It is so bad. They'd rather stop it all. Like, death sounds better than waking up again tomorrow, because it's so bad and it ain't going away. So
Sadly,
that makes sense.
I've had that experience as well. I never wanted to commit suicide, but my illness got so bad and I was in so much pain. And what people don't realize about Crohn's is it's not just an intestinal disease. It can occur anywhere from your mouth to your anus, but it causes so many other problems. I'm still trying to correct my posture to this day, because when your stomach hurts, you naturally bend over.
Yeah.
So you end up with all these joint issues, muscle issues, just all this extra stuff. Yeah. And I remember laying in my mom's arms one night, and I was just praying to God, God, take me now.
Yeah.
And my prayer at that time was like, if you love me, just take me with you. Because I just could not deal with the suffering, and it's so much pain. I was crawling around on the floor like major pain in the war. It just was terrible. And I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. And you go ahead. Oh man. And looking back, it's beautiful, like where you're at now. And this is some of the stuff you talk about that you've learned along the way, is that you can look back and see that though that feeling was valid at the time, the emotion and the conclusion you were wanting was wrong, and how much you learned from growing through that and overcoming that and not dying, regardless of what it was you were dealing with. Now you're able to look back and see how much stronger you are because of what you went through, and you're able to reflect on the things that came from battling through that. I mean, I find that we realize very easily how, like, I think there's a limit to what I can suffer. Like, I think I can't take any more, and then more comes. And it's like, you know, with pleasure, whether like chocolate cake is my favorite thing in the whole world. You eat it, there's only so much of that you can take, man. Every pleasure is like that. I can only pick one, and you can only have so much of it. But suffering, it's like when I think I've had as much as I can take, it's just there's more that is brought into my world, and being able to. I never knew I was capable of overcoming what I've overcome, and even as I look forward, like you would agree that I'm not afraid of suffering. I'm just always looking at today and how to have realize that that today, even in whatever I'm dealing with, there is good to be had. And there's so many people that have made me who I am, that I can be of value in today, even when I don't feel well. You know what I mean?
God has given me such an amazing story. And I'm an advocate for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis and having an ostomy, because I understand now that I'm older and I've had this experience that you will not die. And when I had it, I felt, well, I still have it, but I felt very alone. I felt by myself. I didn't see anybody my color. I didn't see anybody my age. I wish I had a me to tell me that you're going to make it through. Even when I started going to ostomy support groups back then, everybody was at least 40 years older than me.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to them, but it doesn't resonate the way somebody your age talking to you
That's right.
would resonate with you. And I need people to understand you're not alone. You're not by yourself. There is somebody who has made it to the other side. And so when I talk about all of this chronic illness now, I really try to focus on how to live with and what you do after, because all of us have grand and amazing stories of how we got here. And we could talk for days and days about pain and suffering and all the terrible things that happen. But I also want to tell you all the good. How much this has given me a story, how much this has given me a community, how much this has given me purpose added to my life. What I thought was going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me turned out to be one of the best. I'm not running to the restroom 20 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating on that number. I am not in pain like I was. I can still do sports. I can still date. My life is so robust. And without this ostomy, I understand that I wouldn't have that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What was going on leading up to the ostomy in 2013 as things kind of got worse for you to where you're at that point where, what was going on in your health world that led to all of that?
So with me having these on and off spurts of extreme health and extreme sickness, I went to the University of Texas at Austin. It was close enough to Houston, 3 hours away. It was close enough to where my mom could get to me if there was an emergency, but far enough away to where she would have 3 hours to get to me if I was partying. So that helped me make my decision. So I was at UT, and the first semester I was on the Dean's Honor Roll. Every other semester I was sick. And so it got down to my last years at UT, and it was so bad that I registered with Student Disability Services, which is something that I tell people about. Just because you don't have something that's visible to people doesn't mean you don't have an illness. You can go register. And I would drive my car, park in the handicap space in front of class, hobble into class, have to leave at least 5 times during an hour-long class, and the professors knew, so they weren't bothered. But you're making all this noise, you're passing people, you've got these big heavy doors to these auditorium classrooms. I felt like such a distraction, but I also knew I wanted to finish school. And so I would go back out into my car and then go to sleep until I had enough strength to drive back to my student apartment. And that's the way I lived my life. And I didn't tell anybody. My roommate knew, my friends at college knew, but I didn't really want to tell my parents because I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I wanted to get my degree. And it got so bad that I called my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know if I can make it. And she said, come home. My counselors talked to me, go home, come back to college later. Everybody said, go home and come back to college later, except my father. he said, well, you know your body better than anybody. If you think you can make it, I support you. And I understand everybody's concern, but from my neighborhood, everybody who dropped out of college or took a break, didn't finish, didn't go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a degree was important for me. And
Yeah.
so I pushed through, and I've probably made some very terrible decisions. I should have come home, but I got my degree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember one very vivid day where I was running to the restroom, and I knew all the campus buildings near my classes and how I could get to the restroom quickest. Because in those buildings, you don't walk in and there's a restroom right there. You got to go to like the basement or the side hallway. And
Yeah.
I had all these different routes. But one day I got caught and I didn't make it to the restroom. And I actually used the restroom on a public sidewalk. I could not get to the restroom, and I was by a bush, and I had to let it happen. And it was the most degrading experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I actually have a poem about it now. And it's a poem that I struggle, because every time I say the poem, I end up crying because I'm right back there in that bush in that day.
Yeah.
And people are walking by on the sidewalk, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I didn't have my car that day. So now I have to ride home on the student bus, and I have soiled myself.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much lower than that.
Oh man, I've been there, Stephanie. I have been there. I've been on a beach in some like pampas grass type stuff. I've been on a retreat with about 50 dudes, and during the day out on a bunch of out on a hunt in a field where there's nowhere to hide. I have been outside and had to do this probably 100 times since I was diagnosed when I was 10 years old. And it's like, it is the worst when someone was walking by and, with my buddies, when I was on the retreat, it was like, it's no big deal. I can talk it out, and I'm dealing with guys that can relate. But I mean, just, oh my gosh, like outside of Coke Arena in Wichita at the WSU game on my way in there in college, it was just like right in front of this, right in front of the Fidel house, man. And there's people walking by with drinks, and I'm just like, oh no. Yeah. I'd be at a baseball game. I couldn't get from the outfield to the bathrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, holy cow. And the ostomy made that whole life go totally gone.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's weird. You got a piece of intestine on the outside of your body, but it's so wonderful.
Oh man, I wonder how many people I know have ever seen me squatting somewhere. I wonder what that number is.
I know it's high for me. And so the day I graduated was really, really joyous. But in 2009, it really was a recession. And so I could not find a job. I had this big, pretty degree in radio, television, and film, and nowhere to apply it. Yeah. And so my parents were military people. They met at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they split, but my dad stayed in Las Vegas, and my mom moved us to Houston. And so after college, my dad said, well, you can probably find a job here. They're always hiring in the hospitality industry. So I moved to Vegas, and I got a job in marketing, which is closely related to my radio, television, and film degree. Yeah. And I started living and working, and everything was going fine. I was actually healthy. I didn't have too many issues. And I went in for
What year was this?
This was 2012. So I moved there in 2009, and I had been living and working for about 3 years. Minimal issues. You have your flare-ups and stuff. But in 2012 is when it got really bad. And I went in for a regular checkup. I was having a couple of issues, but I went in for a regular checkup. And I remember the nurse had one of those new thermometers where you just swipe it across your face. Yeah. And so she swiped it, and the temperature was like 103. And she was like, oh, maybe I caught your blanket. I had a heated blanket on. She said, maybe I caught your blanket. She did it again, and it's turned into emergency surgery. So I didn't have a choice with the ostomy. It was like either do this or die. And you don't have time to process. You don't have time to figure out whether you want this. It's like, here's your option. Take it or don't live. Yeah. And I ended up having to have a complete colectomy with ileostomy. And they took out my colon. And I remember I was working with this one doctor, and at the end, this big hotshot doctor, I'll never forget, Dr. Bartek Cholu came in, and they were talking about how he was going to give me this awesome surgery. And I was like, I literally do not care. I don't want this to happen to me right now, but do what you got to do. Yeah. And when I got my ostomy in January of 2013, everybody kept saying how beautiful it was. All the doctors, all the interns, that's beautiful. He did beautiful work. It just looks amazing. And I'm sitting there like, are y'all stupid? Do you know what he just did to me? I don't see the beauty. And I literally wouldn't look at it. I was laying there and you have that initial shock and they usually put that clear bag over it so you can see all the new waste coming out.
That clear bag is the most heartbreaking freaking thing for everybody going through that surgery. That clear bag with your first stool, it is the most heartbreaking thing. Oh my gosh. Stephanie.
It's so bad. And I didn't want to move a lot. I was scared I was going to injure it some kind of way. And I just was like, I refuse. This happened, but it felt like my emotions started to catch up with what happened. And they still weren't fully there yet, but they started to catch up. And what changed it for me was my little brother, who lives in Vegas, was like 9 at the time or something like that. And he hadn't been by to see me yet because I was too sick. And he walks in the room. This dude was so excited. And he was like, how cool. And he said it in that voice. And that made me look at the ostomy, and it gave me so much strength.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that just like flipped a switch in my brain, because everybody always talks about how I'm so strong and resilient and I've done this and I've done that. And I didn't feel strong and resilient. And when my brother, little as he was, said that, and he wanted to talk to me about what I could do with my ostomy and this and that, it turned something on for me. And all of a sudden I was like, I can do this. We're good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's do this.
That's really cool. That right there is why it's so important for what you're doing with your life now, because we feed off of each other. We really do. And you can't ever, like, when we're suffering with Crohn's and colitis and people with ostomies, no matter what your health problem, and you just stick inside your own head, I mean, that's a dangerous place. And being able to let other people in, that's how God breaks into our world, right? I mean, that's who that was. You got some enthusiasm, and he just shot it right through the mouth of babes, and here it is, right on a platter for you, and it propelled you forward with the trajectory you weren't even expecting at the time, I'm sure.
No, I was not at all.
That's
and
awesome.
it was still very early for me. They wanted to avoid giving me an ostomy. They did everything they could. I was on Remicade infusions until my body started rejecting those. It was every 8 weeks, and then it got down to every 6 weeks, then every 4 weeks. And when we got down to 4 weeks, the doctor said, well, at this point, when you get down to every 2 weeks, it's time for us to start looking at surgical options, because what kind of quality of life are you going to have coming in here for an infusion every 2 weeks? They talked about giving me a J pouch so that my ostomy could eventually be reversed and I could still use the restroom normally. But there were so many issues with that. They left my anus in at first because they were thinking maybe in the future we can go this other route and reroute some things. But at some point, my anus even got diseased, even after the ostomy. So they had to remove that. So then I had a surgery for that. And now I've got Barbie butt, which I make a lot of jokes about.
Yeah.
And I came up with Barbie butt myself, but the first time I heard somebody else with an ostomy say it,
you're like, oh,
it felt so good. It was just like, oh, not just me. And
these are my people.
These are my people.
That's right.
Even having an ostomy, I've had it since 2013, and I've been managing it myself since 2013. I haven't had a regular ostomy nurse. Well, very recently, I started having issues where my ostomy was leaking every day and multiple times a day. Yeah. So I'm getting really concerned because I'm running through my supplies and I'm not understanding why it's leaking. And
running through the supplies is worse. It's so bad. That's scary.
You're looking at it, get lower and lower, and you start to panic, and then you're wondering, is your insurance going to cover more? Because insurance is a whole nother racket that we could do a whole nother show about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like I thought from the very beginning, so I have been very fortunate. When I got my ostomy, I had a job at a great company and I had great insurance. Mm-hmm. And from then to now, I've had great insurance. And so I've had major medical coverage, wonderful deductibles, never been denied, tons of supplies. I would go in and get my supplies next to other people with my same problems getting ostomy supplies, bawling because they were given 30 frickin' bags for a 30-day month. And I'm just like, I can't believe this is, you're telling me the truth?
Yeah.
And I couldn't give them any of mine because we have different sizes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like, holy cow. And from that moment, I was like, if I ever quit, like I love my job. I'm a financial advisor. I've been doing it for 15 years. I mean, it is my passion. But I said then, I was like, if I ever quit doing what I'm doing, it would only be to be an advocate, somehow a lobbyist or something for all of us here, to insurance companies, to get all these stupid people in boardrooms to quit making frickin' decisions with zero experience and zero conversations with the patient. It's absurd. You're right. We could have a whole other conversation about it. Sorry, I went off.
No, you're fine, because they don't know. I actually got selected to go speak at a conference full of doctors and tell them what the patient experience was like. And it was understood, it wasn't said, but it was understood that these doctors needed to have more compassion for their patients. And when I told my story and I talked about one particular time where some snafu happened with my insurance and they stopped giving me pain medication for 3 days. And it was one of the worst experiences out of all of my entire experiences with this illness.
Yeah.
And then whatever in the system was wrong, they found it or fixed it or traced it back. And then I could get pain medication again. But because of how much it costed, I couldn't get proper care.
Yeah.
And at the end of my entire presentation, and I said the poem that I mentioned to you, and
Did you
gave
cry?
me a standing ovation. Yeah. I can't get through that one. It puts me right back in that moment. It does.
Yeah.
And some stuff you get over, because something I'm really careful about in being an advocate is not giving in to trauma porn or letting my trauma define me.
Yeah.
I'm not defined by my Crohn's disease and my ulcerative colitis or my ostomy. I'm Stephanie the person. I never wanted to be the ostomy girl. I wanted to be Stephanie Bension who has an ostomy.
That's right.
When you define yourself by your illness, you never get to discover who you would be without it. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's a part of your identity, but it's not your whole identity.
That's right. And that's almost the problem with our culture anyways, is because we try and hyper focus on one single quality about any individual, and we're left empty at the end of the day, and we'll spend our life pressing this one thing. But we have a soul, and there's a human being inside of here, and that human being just happens to have all these qualities as a human. And it's like, my word.
Yeah, people do try to box you in. As a public speaker, people ask me what I speak about, and I tell them overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
Because if I tell you Crohn's, you're only going to put me in rooms that have something to do with Crohn's. But I also went to college on full scholarships. That's overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
I also have a family life that was hectic and got better. That's overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
My career has been a winding path, and that's overcoming adversity. And so I won't allow the world to box me in. I'll be just specific enough for you to get what you need to get or connect me to who you need to connect me to. But I'm not a monolith, and no human person is. That isn't the way we're designed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And everybody can relate to stories of overcoming adversity also. So regardless of the audience, we're able to put ourselves in other people's shoes when we listen to their stories, right? Because we are human, and we relate on that level, on a very emotional level. Hearing stories and sharing each other's is one of those ways we do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can inspire one person, I know people say that all the time and it feels cliche and corny, but it's cliche for a reason. If I literally have one person who feels like they can go on because of something that I shared, then it's worth it, because that person is going to touch at least one more person, and that's how you pay it forward. I was so nervous about posting about my ostomy on Instagram, but every time I do, I get at least 3 people in my DMs, and it's generally Black women specifically who say, I'm so glad you said something, or I'm so glad to see somebody who looks like me, or can you tell me about your experience with this specific thing, or do you have advice on that? And I'm like, I'm not a medical professional, but I can give you my experience, and having somebody in your realm, representation is so important. So talking to other people with ostomies, talking to other women, talking to other Black women, we can get really specific with it.
That's right.
And it gives us all a sense of strength because we're all in this community together.
Right. And as we find out, even amongst our peers that we visit with about that have different issues, other like you could go and find tons of women on social media that have ostomies that are talking about it and blah blah blah, but there are only a few guys, and most of them are younger. And like in my ostomy support group, it's all older guys, and I'm always trying to promote social media, but even those older guys, depending on their build or their background, have a hard time just because of their specific situation. And really the more we talk and share and learn about each other, we pick up little tips here and there, which is actually how we find cures for illnesses, and we find efficient solutions for these problems, is just by each of it. Like Michael J. Fox says, I got to get the line because I've been badgering it, but he says that the patient is the expert. And when we can share these stories and the drugs we've been using and kind of how they affected me, and someone can see something similar in that to them, that's an experiment in action, right? That's a laboratory taking place in the form of a conversation, because that's exactly what scientists are trying to do. And we can do that right here together and get to solutions in our own world a whole lot quicker. So yeah, I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I can understand them not wanting to talk about it, because in society, especially American society, toilet humor is literally a trope.
Yeah.
And so it's something that people laugh at. But when you are literally in your body every day and you have to use the restroom so much, and you've got all these smells happening and all these gas noises, and it's supposed to be something that people find funny, but it's debilitating you, I can see how that would emasculate you, because as far as my femininity, I felt disgusting. And I was in high school at the time. And I remember being on a bus on a field trip, and I had to pass gas, and I almost cleared the bus out. That didn't do well for my crush. That didn't do well for my reputation. It doesn't make me feel human. It makes me feel like a monster. And so especially for a grown man, you have to be really comfortable and secure within yourself to be able to talk about toilet, anything, bodily function, anything. You have to be really brave.
Yeah.
And people tell me I was brave and I didn't get it, but now I get it.
Yeah. I've said for a long time that our problems, our poop problems, bowel issues, are either humorous or absurd. Those are the two reactions. And when that's your life, like it's kind of like me and my friends, if one of us, we all speak English just fine. And if one of us stutters, I'm thinking about something just mild, we'll make fun of each other. Right? We'll give each other a hard time, and you can mimic each other. Well, if that stutter was my problem, the room changes as to how they address it, right? So take that now to our bowel problems, and the room never calms down for our bowel problems like that, like it does for someone with Tourette's. That's why when we tell someone we got a stomach ache, or we've had chronic diarrhea for a period of time, they think they can frickin' relate, and they can smile because they got over theirs in a couple of days. And you're like, you know what? Wait, no, that isn't how this works. No way. And it takes, oh man, I could go on forever.
Yeah, I get it. I really, truly get it. And sometimes it's refreshing for people to make jokes and treat it normally, but that's now that I feel like I'm more on the other side of emotions and pain. While you're going through it, you again feel really, really isolated.
Yeah.
And it just does not feel like anybody in the world understands what you understand or is going through what you've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. How, so since you've been having some of these problems with leaks and things, talk to me just a little bit about how you change is the hardest thing for us, right? Because the messes are crappy, and I don't want to find out at frickin' work or in my car that this was a bad decision that I made 2 days ago on this different appliance. How you've been managing that, and what steps you've been taking as you've been trying to solve it?
Well, just in my life in general, when I first got my ostomy, I got gift bags from Hollister and Coloplast and you know all the different companies that are trying to recruit you for their products.
Yeah,
And so I would keep a bag, an emergency bag at home. I would keep one in my car and I would keep one at work because you never know. And
right.
if you're out and about somewhere, you know, you can't help that. But in the places that I was the most, I would keep extra supplies.
Yeah,
And so with my ostomy recently, I got sidetracked, so I'm going to come back to this. So I was having the leaks, and this whole time, these 6 or 7 years, I haven't had an ostomy nurse. I've been managing it on my own, figuring stuff out on my own. I haven't asked anybody any questions. I probably should have. And
yeah,
now I'm going to be more in the community, but I was having these leaks and couldn't solve them. And you've got waste on you all the time.
yeah,
So not only is it a physical problem, it starts to affect your mental health
yeah,
because you feel unclean, and then you
yeah.
have to wash your sheets daily, you have to wash your clothes daily, you have to disinfect everything over and over and over again. And I started to have leaks more than once a day when normally my pouches last me 7 days.
Oh
And
man.
so I looked up an ostomy nurse. There was this whole rigmarole of insurance, and I was like, oh my God, I do not miss this. So
Yeah,
once I finally got in to see the ostomy nurse, I was with my people. She was
yeah,
terminology I hadn't heard in years. She knew
yeah.
exactly what I was talking about. She started saying, this is your appliance and this is what we can do. And this is what I've learned from other patients.
Heck
And
yeah,
that's what I loved about her. She said exactly what you said. The patients are the experts.
yeah.
And so we discovered that I needed a barrier ring because I gained a little bit of weight. And so the shape of your skin around your ostomy changes. And now I need this ring to help make it flat.
You ain't 5'4" and 64 anymore.
No, thank the Lord. I'm 5'5" and I just got to 121 pounds.
Oh
My whole
man.
life, I said if I got to 100, I was having a party. I was doing a Beyonce
Yeah.
theme music video, and you couldn't tell me nothing. And I hit 100. I was so excited, and I got up to 121 right now, which is the most I've ever weighed in my life.
Oh wow.
And so I put this barrier ring on and it immediately worked. And I had been dealing with this issue for about a month. So imagine I'm running through supplies, I'm dealing with waste every day. And I probably should have gone earlier, but what we tend to do when we're sick, some of us, is try to solve it ourselves first
Yeah.
because you know what it's going to be like once you put yourself back in that medical arena.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me try to change my diet. Let me try some different pouches. I called Hollister and got some samples sent to me. I was like, is my size changing? Let me remeasure. But I just needed this barrier ring. And she provided that for me. My nurse, Eleanor, at St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston, Texas. I'm really big
Yeah.
about shouting out my people. And it fixed the issue. And it feels so safe and secure and dry when waste is not wasting on your body and it's just there
Right.
and you're good. It's
You
the
know,
best.
and when you were going through that, see, we don't even like those problems. I don't like my own crap. I don't like dealing with my own waste, right? And if it's making me have anxiety, how in the world am I going to talk to anybody about it? And
Yeah.
so it's like, who do you call when you have garbage? You call the garbage man, right? You got to go to somebody who's used to taking out the trash. So when you got ostomy problems and stool issues, you got to go to somebody who's used to doing that, because you really got to, in order to solve the problem, you got to be candid about what you're dealing with so that they can really help you solve it. And
Yeah.
that's the only way to do it. But you're exactly right. Opening up and seeing our ostomy nurses when we're having these problems and talking it out is huge.
Yeah, definitely. And I really want more nurses to register with the WOCN, the Wound and
Yeah.
Ostomy Care. I forget exactly what it stands for, but if you're a nurse who cares, we need you. And
Yeah.
we need you registered so that we can find you. Because I asked Eleanor if she was registered and she said, not yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
She was so compassionate. And I
Yeah.
really appreciated that. When you're dealing with something of this degree, you need somebody who's not going to come in and be rough and gruff. And doctors do that. And I
Yeah.
get it because they have to keep this level of emotional separation. But if my doctor's rough and gruff, I need my nurse to have a little bit of softness,
That's right.
male or female. I need
That's
you to have
right.
a little bit of softness about yourself because this is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's new to us and we fear the unknown, right? And so, like, the one thing I hated, I remember right after my surgery that certain people would come in to mess with it and they would just be rough. And I'd be like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's no different than when I'd have fistula surgery on my rectum and I'd go in and the nurses doing the prep at the doctor's office just pull your butt apart and you're just like, I'm 20 years old crying, trying not to make any noise because it's like, oh my goodness, how do you, if I was your kid, what?
But they do this for a living. They do this all day, and you're just another person who's in and out. Or even if they are caring, they've done 5 of these before they got to you, and they kind of forget patient care in there a little bit. And that's one thing that I'm also a big advocate for. And I want to help teach people how to advocate for themselves, because the truth is doctors work for you. And doctors will come in all fast and try to give you a bunch of information and leave. I will stop a doctor in their tracks, take a picture of their badge. I don't care if it's intimidating to you. I need to know who you are. I need to know every medication you're administering to me, even if I'm out of it. I want to know what it is. I want to know who's in charge of my care. And you're going to talk to me because I am a patient advocate. And if I'm in the room, something that I dealt with a lot when I was younger, yes, my mom is in the room, but I'm the patient. Talk to me or talk to both of us. Don't just talk to my mom. Because I'm here and I'm human. And if I'm 15 or 54, I am the patient.
Yeah. It's like the doctor's trying to tell your mom. She's trying to tell mom, and they talk to mom, hoping that she'd be the translator and give us the information at our level later or something.
Yep. And I could see if I was a school-age child, but at this point, I can talk to you and tell you what's going on with me.
That's right.
I'm involved in my care. And so if you're a patient, stop a doctor in their tracks. They are supposed to make time to talk to you. And if there's something that's happening with your care that you don't like or don't agree with, ask them for it in writing and watch their attitude change.
Yeah, that's
ask
right.
Ask them to put it in writing and give you a record of it and watch their attitude change.
That's right. They'll change real quick.
And granted, they know stuff we don't know. They have a lot more information than we have, but you're allowed to know what their treatment plan for you is, and you're allowed to know why.
Yeah, our job isn't surrender, right? That's what your initial problem was. That's why you were on all those different drugs. That's why I was because we initially, yes, we surrendered because we didn't know, and we let you give us everything, and we let ourselves just be ignorant of it all. Not anymore. I'm not doing that a second time through. And that situation caused me to be this way. And your impatience with it is actually making me question you. So
exactly, because I can choose another doctor.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's a bunch more out here. The American healthcare system, there's plenty of options.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
So what would you say is one of the best lessons that you've had from living with an ostomy and going through that emotional journey from it being emergency surgery, you waking up with it and being appalled, to a spike of inspiration, but then into living the ostomy life and dealing with those ups and downs and the reality of trying to go back to work and all, what that does to our brain is intense. And what would you say has been one or two things that have just really come from that have been so positive in your world?
Oh, that's a hard question because there's so many. I'm going to give you the 2 that are popping into my head right now for some reason.
Yeah.
The first is that, and this is going to seem a little weird, but stay with me.
Yeah.
The first is that you are still sexually desirable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are still
That's
yourself.
Right.
You will still find a partner. There will be people who love you with, in spite of, alongside of having an ostomy.
Yeah.
You're still cute. There's
That's
a
right.
lot of clothes that you can still wear. And especially for women, you know, we are concerned about our figures. And there are certain things I can't wear because I'm like, okay, it looks good now. But when my ostomy, when my pouch gets a little fuller, how's it going to look before I go to the restroom and empty it? You know, and so we think about those things. And I really want people to know, I know you're blessed and you're married and you have children, but for those of us who are single or trying to find our way in the dating space, your personality, even though you go through some things, your personality is still the same.
Yeah.
You're stronger because of it, and you're actually more attractive as a survivor.
Yeah, that's
That's what,
exactly right. Oh yeah. I learned while I was dating, because I broke myself. I mean, I serial dated after my surgery to almost prove to myself that I was attractive, that I was lovable, and that broke me in half, Stephanie. It broke me in half doing that. And then once I realized that my ostomy and my health problems are an incredible filter for the person God wants me to have in my life. I mean, I didn't know how much he used my health problems to point me to my bride until I started down this path of going, holy crap, this is like a brilliant way of finding a good woman, because once I started owning it and talking about it with them on the front end, their reaction, the way we would interact, how they'd respond to my issues when I was straight up and wasn't hiding that life anymore, was my filter that just allowed me to go, nope, next, nope, next, nope, next.
Yep.
You, April Joy. Yes, ma'am.
You. Yep. Yeah, it's very serious. It slows you down because you're not casual anymore. You have to have a very serious conversation about, can you handle what my body is going through? And so it definitely provides a qualifier for the people that you're dating. And then the other thing that I'd say that's popping into my mind right now, and please don't think this is the limit because it's not, but there is a huge difference between honesty and transparency. Your support system will ask you 1,000,000 times, how are you feeling? You will hate that question because you can't give them a positive answer all the time. And it's the question you get asked the most. Well, there's a big difference between being honest and being transparent. Being honest is saying, I'm okay, or I don't feel good. Being transparent is saying, I don't feel good because I went to the restroom 20 times today, and it's really kind of irritating me that you're asking me this question.
Yeah.
I love that you want to have compassion for me, but I just need a little bit of a break.
That's right.
And it's literally telling you all the things in my head, because the reason I realize people are asking you this question is because they're not in your head and they're not in your body, and they want to help, and they need information in order to be able to do that.
That's right.
So yeah, they want a positive answer, but more than that, they want to know, how are you doing? What is the information that will help me ease your pain a little bit, ease your way in this world a little bit? And it's one thing to tell the truth. It's another thing to give the details.
Yeah.
Of the truth.
And there's some reverence in that question too, because the respect for our problems and the personal level of them, and them just asking how I'm doing. I mean, I have 3 brothers and 4 sisters and tons of buddies that are all alphas, and all we do is pick on each other. And the question back when we were running around, we were all pretty narcissistic and selfish, was always really undermining and really rude when they'd ask about how I was doing. And it always had to do with me not being strong enough, not being tough enough, those kinds of things. But, you know, now as we've all grown up, it is the how are you doing from those loved ones and the people around you. That's just their way of saying, I care about you. I'm just seeing if you're all right. And they don't know any other way of saying it. And out of respect for what we deal with, that's the way they ask it.
Yep. And I was really, really blessed to have an amazing family and an amazing support system. And we do things like, if we were walking somewhere and I'd have to stop and take a break for 10 minutes, that was fine.
Yeah.
But they still included me in all those life moments that I still didn't want to miss, you know?
Yeah.
My mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my stepmom, and all of my close circle of friends have all been so supportive. When I was in high school and I got diagnosed and the desks were too hard for me to sit on because my bottom was so tender, my classmates bought me a pillow. They chipped in.
Yeah.
They chipped in and gave me money and a pillow to sit on. And that small act of kindness wrecked me for the rest of the day. I was a pool of tears, and I don't cry easily. You know, I'll let my emotions out, but I was just a wreck after that. Those acts of compassion really make a difference.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I say it all the time. Sometimes you just have to let people give. When we are the sick person and we are the person receiving love, you know, we kind of have this temperament where we want to go, you know, I can do it on my own, and I don't want to ask for help and stuff. Well, everybody around you has a need to give inside of them. They need someone to love. Even the unlovable people need someone to love. And in a lot of ways, God has blessed us by giving us our issues because we are the receptionist of all of this love and generosity and compassion. Like, I couldn't love somebody the way I've been loved by so many people. I couldn't give what I've received to somebody else because I don't know if I'd deal with someone else's problems that I have the way that people have with me, you know?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. And I think you said something really important just now. These are blessings.
Yeah.
They can feel bad. They can feel like a curse. We use the word disease. We use a lot of negative language around medical issues.
Yeah.
But this is my blessing. Now I get to go around the world and have Austin Powers reach out to me and say, do you want to be on the Ostomy Guy podcast? And I didn't even ask you how you found me, probably social media, but I get to talk to people about this beautiful, wonderful, terrible thing that happened to me and let them know you're going to be okay because I'm okay.
Yeah. So I say, you said something a little bit ago, you know, about dating and being single and having an ostomy. And I've said for a long time, even when I was single, this is a mantra that because I desired a spouse so much, this is something that a mantra that I just repeated to myself. And that's that if you're single, praise Jesus. If you're married, praise Jesus. If you can have kids, praise Jesus. If you can't have children, praise Jesus. Because apparently the world and God need you single or need you married right now. And so that's where grace is. And in order for you to get it, you need to accept right where you're at right now and battle from here forward, because denying anything else is only a disservice to our growth and how great we can be and how successful we can be at this life and overcoming our suffering.
God's timing is perfect.
Yeah.
And if you remember that, and if you remember to trust God and understand that He has orchestrated your life perfectly, even at the worst moments, He has orchestrated your life perfectly for a reason.
You mean there's no accidents?
It's no accidents. His ways are so much higher than ours. So even if you don't get it, lean not unto your own understanding.
Yeah,
and that's the thing to really know.
I've learned over and over that I do not know what is best for me, and God has known what is best for me, right? But I say to my friends all the time, you know, when we're getting ready, when you're thinking pretty proud of yourself, I say, when was the last time you actually knew what you wanted and were right? Like, you know, when was the last time I was like, yeah, that's what's going to be good for me, and I chose it, and I was actually right, and that it happens totally different. I thought I knew what kind of woman I wanted to marry. I was wrong, right? I go through a number of scenarios like that in life. That's awesome.
But I bet you your wife is perfect now.
Oh my goodness. Well, she would tell you no. I would tell you she's pretty close, and I'd give you a list of the things that still really annoy me. But we've got 4 children together, and when you can see all of my traits and her traits and how God takes those and throws them into this little human and that little human, and we're like, okay, well, you know, we got everything we got from those who were before us. Look, we're passing on to our kids. All right, babe, we're in this together.
Yeah, we're in it now.
That's right.
Yep.
Hey, tell our listeners where they can find you, will you?
Yes, I am on all social media platforms at Miss Bension, MissBension. You can also find me at Stephanie Bension. I am a public speaker. I also have a digital agency where I build websites and do social media management.
Oh, wow.
And I have an ostomy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, even on your down days, you shoot me a text. You go, hey, I'm having a bad day. Give me something good. And I'll do it. I mean, because don't let yourself get trapped. I know you know that, but even if you just sometime random, don't hesitate to reach out, because we all go there no matter what, and I'm always game to go crawling into the foxhole with somebody, man. That's where I thrive, right?
Yeah, you're in the community, Austin. I will definitely do that, and I extend that exact same courtesy to you. Like anything you need, it helps to have somebody to reach out to.
That's really cool. I appreciate it. Stephanie, this was awesome. This is really cool. It was good to get to know you. It was cool to kind of hear what all you're doing and what you're up to. And I've learned a lot. And again, I reiterate how even just talking about this stuff, even you in Houston, me, and not too far up in Kansas, but just being able to relate. I mean, I went from being tired to where am I now? I mean, I'm full of energy and I'm excited, and I didn't want to deal with overcoming my exhaustion, and here we are. And this is what happens. And I've made a new friend, and now we're on our way. It's like this is what happens when you share stories. So thank you for coming on and sharing yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may I give a birthday shout out?
Oh yeah, do it.
Next month, my sister Stacy, her birthday is on September the 10th. She will be 30 years old. She has been one of my rocks in life. She has always been beside my bedside, whether we were at home or in the hospital. And I just want to tell her happy early birthday. Yeah,
to all our ride or dies out there. Buck, you know who you are. All you guys, all you girls. That's right. Hey, subscribe, like, and follow. And don't be afraid to tell somebody you know that's dealing with this stuff to check me out. Go to the Ostomy Guy podcast. You can check out my book on Amazon, and the website's theostomyguy.com. And I'm always happy to help anybody who's struggling with something. The community is so important. We don't need to be handheld through the whole thing, but we do need somebody who has an open ear that can kind of stomp with us through our issues. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. This has been really cool. So peace out.